Thanks, everybody, back at the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center and our dear friends Deepwater Wind. Appreciate all their support. We are here with Mr. Innovation, Saul Kaplan. I missed you last week. Yearned for you while I was away.
I came in and said, "Where's Josh?" And I got the hush hush top secret. Like he's out of the office. We're not at liberty to share where Josh is today. Like okay.
The witness protection plan did not work out the way I had hoped.
Put me in after Iftikhar. This guy's the Rhode Island hero right now.
Oh my God!
Now we're gonna.
Listen, if he goes to Foxwood, follow him to the craft stable.
No, he's really good. I was really fortunate early on after he got here. Someone had put the two of us together, and he came over to our shop at BIF, and I knew right away before any of this happened, like this guy is a clear thinker, really execution focused. Had just a really wonderful view of how we were going to leverage the asset, the capability set that we have there, and don't you know, he's done it in much shorter order than I would have ever guessed anybody could pull it off, and so kudos to him.
It's really remarkable.
And for all of us to have access to this kind of place. Just this morning I talked to one of our storytellers for our summit who lives in Oslo. Literally this morning, and we were talking about coming like, hey, maybe I'll go over and visit Oslo now. Like got the flight coming out of here.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
The first time I met Iftikhar was probably 8 or 9 months ago, right after he'd come, and it reminded me. I'm on the men's basketball committee of Brown.
Okay.
And the first time we have a sit down with a brand new head coach, Craig Robinson, and his brother-in-law was then the newly elected senator from Illinois, and let me tell you, Craig Robinson is as impressive as Barack Obama is, and just sitting there going, I don't know how long this guy is going to be at Brown University because he just such a rock star, and Iftikhar the same. I mean, Iftikhar is just got that ability to put things together, to make things happen, and not see the obstacles, and not say this is the way to always happen. And he just goes out and gets it done. He's doubled the number of flights daily at the airport.
This is a guy who, just like the innovation process needs to look, what are the capabilities that you have? How do you combine them in different ways? I give him a lot of credit for creating the result that he has, but where did those capabilities come from? A longer runway, the ability to take longer haul flights, combined with what was going on in the airline industry anyway, where these carriers can come in and they can strip off economic value on these long haul flights, and they need a place to go from, and he pitched it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So good for him.
Yeah.
And good for all of us because we get to go. I mean, these are fares that, I wouldn't wake up and say, maybe I'll take a trip to Oslo, but I look at the fares and maybe we'll go. It's great.
No, it's remarkable. I mean, you could make the argument that you can get, if you buy right, you can get to places for what it costs you for 3 days overseas or 3 days in New York.
Right. Now, if we're smart, we're leveraging it the other way to say, and the same thing plays the other way, and you can come here. You can come here as a tourist. You can come here to look at the business community because it's easy in and out. I'm a huge advocate for transportation infrastructure. I don't just want the airport and all these flights. I want the Hyperloop.
Right.
I want the high-speed.
Is that thing done yet?
Right. Well, they're talking about it, but this guy is so bold and has produced so much result underneath his visions. You don't count him out.
No.
And so I say, if there's going to be a Hyperloop in the Northeast Corridor, let's make sure it stops in Providence.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And he seems to have it on his radar that it's going to be Providence, Rhode Island.
Why not? Why not? Our location in the Northeast, it's a beautiful node on the way up and down the eastern seaboard, and let's make sure it stays that way. And so let's open up the rail, the air, and we've also talked about transportation within the state and how you move from place to place. So it's nice to see. I think it's an important part of the innovation infrastructure that we need here.
So, since last we met, I know you had conversations with Russ last week, but since last we met, we had the National Governors Association. I think the legislative leaders were already in a fight from the last time we met. There seems to be some indication that
Détente.
Henry Kissinger's flights back and forth are paying off something, or they got both put on the stairs and in timeout, or who knows what it is, but that who knows? But the boys are making up and may come back to work and actually pass a budget and do some of those.
Well, for whatever reason, that's true, and I believe it. I don't need to know the reasons. Just do it. Like, let's move on. Let's close off on the budget. Let's not be bogged down in this. And so, for whatever their reason for getting back together, I hope they can both claim win-win, and they can move on.
National governors, a little bit old news, but an interesting opportunity to show off the state. Never quite sure. These things are littered with lobbyists. I mean, that's who goes to them.
Of course.
And hopefully people get a good sense of Rhode Island and maybe potential. This is not a CEO-driven event. This is a head of government relations for the Northeast type of event.
No, and anybody who wants to be in that conversation, and there's an interesting interest right now in being part of the conversation at the state, at the governor level, given what's going on in Washington.
Right.
So this is why you see Premier Trudeau coming down, because they know that if they can build relationships with governors and state legislatures that can start to move some of this agenda forward in a bottoms-up way, right? That maybe we can make some real progress. So I think it's, and I said this to Russ last week, good for Governor Raimondo, for doing the hard work and making it happen. That didn't happen by accident. And without a lot of hard work. And while we're always quick to criticize, I look at it and say, boy, did Rhode Island show well that week. And I was proud to be a Rhode Islander watching the conversations, and we were on the byline, and in the backdrop of every news story that came from here. I thought the governor did a super job, and I was really pleased to do it. And then, of course, what did it take us, a nanosecond, to come back after everybody leaves, to say, oh, look at all the national stature, in conversation, and then we use it to criticize the governor, right? Because she's too national. Like, what do we want? Like, don't you want your governor to be engaged at the national level? Like, this is a good thing, right?
Well,
I don't get it.
Listen,
I get it. But.
Right. And it's part of it's her personality. I mean, that's what drives an element of it, that she always seems to be looking. I think there's some who think she's always looking for that next job, either in the Clinton administration or someplace else.
She's relentless and focused on pitching the state to everybody and anybody that will listen. And we as Rhode Islanders should be encouraging her
absolutely.
Pitch it, go, build the relationship, have the conversations, with Elon Musk, do it. And then we shouldn't sit back and say, we're critical of her because she did that. This is a good thing. It's about time, we had somebody in that role that played nationally. I've told you in the past, I've been out around the country talking to senior level corporate leaders and want to talk to them about what we're doing at BIF. And you know what they want to talk about? Tell me about your governor. Right? I heard that she's really impressive, and really good. And as a Rhode Islander, I'm like, yes, that's what you want a governor to do, to open up conversations for companies here and for leaders here, to develop their business.
How does she innovate? She's got a good reputation nationally. How does she innovate her personality and performance in state?
She's a doer. I think she's going to stay really focused on delivering, not just at the national conversation level, but she's got to stay focused here locally, right? She's got to continue to fly through all this local chatter, and continue to take what she
isn't at the end of that,
deliver it at DMV. Are we talking about the rollout that just happened at DMV? I mean, everybody was quick to be so critical about UHIP. Where's the same people coming back and saying, you know what? They actually paid attention to the rollout strategy, the pacing of it, the communication around it, and unless I'm missing something, pretty darn good, right?
Yeah, pretty darn good. Couldn't have set the expectation level. I mean, closing the darn thing down.
But that's part of managing change.
Absolutely,
How do you set
100%.
expectations?
100%. I believe the auto dealers are not pleased.
Yeah.
Who's a big constituency.
Okay.
And
I'm
they
sure
are-
it's not perfect.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are things
No.
that have to work.
No,
on.
listen,
But you understand the point.
100%. There was a growing concern that we were completely inept at managing any technology infrastructure at the state level
Yep.
between the combination of DMV and
Yep.
UHIP and some of the other technology
And I'm not
collapses.
one to look at. I can understand both sides of it. There are things that I can say she and the team should have done better. They should have
Yeah.
seen coming, even though they inherited it.
Yeah.
And they didn't originate it. They own it once they took over. And there's some things they should have done to have understood it better, to pay more attention to the detail, understand how people are reacting to it. And so I think that we saw that she learned that. From that to the DMV
Yeah.
example, and her team learned that. And what more can you ask from your leaders, than correcting your mistakes, owning up to them, saying when you need to do better, and then actually doing better and delivering on behalf of the citizens. So I can be critical about some of the things that could always be better, and I can be cynical about it. But let's call a win when it happens.
No, it looks like it's a win.
Yeah.
I think the early returns are that the technology is working, it's functioning. I think they did do a good job lowering expectations to the lowest possible levels.
Absolutely.
I don't know that I've ever seen anybody lower expectations more so closing the place,
Yeah.
telling people not to come. But I agree with you. I think it was a decent rebound from UHIP, which is still struggling.
Correct.
And the lines are
Yep.
around.
Yep.
And part of, I think, all of it is the transparency and having conversations about it. I think this administration, from our standpoint, and what the public seems to respond to, is sometimes the glossing over things that do have some problems. And that may be the lack of maturity as an administration and the first time in there.
No, there's some
like
things that I believe that they should consider doing differently. In today's innovation environment, I maintain that we shouldn't be stick building these systems
Yeah.
and then having to maintain them. Like, why aren't we leveraging capability that lives in the cloud? Why aren't we working with other states that have the same kind of needs to deliver services? So you're not going to convince me that Rhode Island's DMV process and workflow is so different than the other 49 states that all 50 of us have to build our own,
100%.
maintain our own thing. So innovation in this context says, how do we go faster to deliver more service to citizens, to involve more citizens at the center of that? And this is just one example. Like, I would love to see the state working on a portfolio of these things.
Absolutely.
Right?
Right.
And in order to cycle through it faster and to use resources in a smarter way, you've got to change the way we do this, right?
So that's a good
Yeah.
transition to one of the points I wanted to make.
Okay.
We, looking out the window, are looking at a road. Okay?
Yes, we are.
Which could be literally in any third world country. And developing, is that the proper euphemism now? It has been this way for much of the last, we've been located down here about 7 years. And it has been in this condition, and this is downtown,
Yep.
the quote financial district of our capital city. And there's one business owner down the street who owns a restaurant who, he'll say he's the nicest guy in the world.
Yep.
Says it's 30 or 40 times that they have dug up the asphalt in front of his door
Yep.
in the past 2 years.
Yeah.
How in 2017 can this possibly be?
Yeah, so, not that I know the details of this particular street, but you stare out at it, I'm assuming there are these orange, kind of barrels that with the white stripes
Yes,
are getting
yes.
old,
right.
tied
Right.
together with the chevron
Right.
flags, that prevent people from coming in. I don't know the answer to the question, but the conversation that if I were having a conversation with P. Relvidi, would be, okay, tell us what the infrastructure that supports this downtown area looks like. Tell me where on your plan, is this a city road or is this a state?
Well, it seems
Does
to
the
have
state
been a little
support
bit of
this?
everybody. Cardi's
Yep.
been working on it. You've got some telecom dig ups. You've got some water dig ups. none of them seem.
This is probably city though, right here.
This-
So this is probably, like, who we have to talk to is probably the mayor.
Could be it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the grants from the state
Yep,
via through.
that
So
support it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
But we should, as citizens, I do believe that we should be able to have a clear conversation with our leaders, city and state. Like, here's an infrastructure challenge, it affects us as individuals, it affects our businesses. We should get straight answers about, do we have a shared view of what the issues are? Is there a plan in place to fix it? What would have to happen? Is it on a calendar? I've heard at the state level, I've heard the director, try to lay this out in some kind of thoughtful sequence so that people can get clear answers.
Right.
Even if you wish it happened faster.
Right,
We
right.
have to make choices about where we focus.
Right,
The city should be the same thing, but there's been all kinds of politics here locally
Yeah.
about allowing, the mayor to borrow some money to advance faster
Yeah.
on some of it, and the council hasn't been that keen at granting it.
Right.
They debated, because they wanted to control where the money went and who got the priority project. So you end up coming back to, does government function on our behalf?
Right.
Are these petty arguments, amongst politicians?
So how do you
know,
bust? How do
Yep.
you bust through that? What
Yep.
What is it? Is it the public? Throws the bums out? Is it showing them best practices in other cities? We function
Yep.
in some other cities. This doesn't happen to this degree, other than maybe
Yep.
the Braga Bridge, which
Yep.
is the biggest jobs program in the history of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Yeah, I don't think it's unique to us, but I think the way this works today in our new innovation environment is, as citizens, we have a lot more power and influence to organize, to raise the question.
Right.
And to demand, that, and to expect that we're gonna get straight answers about what are the infrastructure challenges here, what are the economic challenges in terms of fixing it, what's getting in our way. So we as citizens can exert more pressure on those things. So it's not just 10 people in the state that are always applying the pressure, for what they want.
Right.
It's all of us as citizens saying, wait a minute, we're uncomfortable, with this. Can you at least help us understand what the issue is so that maybe we could play a role in doing it? So transparency, around the challenge, I think, is really important, so that we could play a more active and engaged role in trying to move towards an answer that, that satisfies us. And it could be the answer is, you gotta sit tight here for the next 3 years, because all the resources we have access to are already programmed, around a priority list of fixing the roads.
So a couple of quick things before we. One of them is, are there some things that shouldn't be innovative? And I'll give you what sparked it was John Kostreva, who we all know, used to be the business editor of the Providence Journal. Facebook friends with him, and he's hiking and climbing all sorts of interesting
Anyway, all of a
things.
sudden,
Right,
like,
right.
what's up with that, John?
Right. He's Jeremiah Johnson or something. So, and I was looking at it, I was like, these are amazing photos, peaceful,
Yeah.
untouched. There's no app for them. There's no Fitbit component that you're gonna, touch your phone to and check in and all those things. Is that maybe one of those things that we're better off letting those types of environments be as pristine, no cell phone service in lots of them when you go climbing or hiking? Isn't that a better place that just, let's not innovate those?
Yeah, so, well, first of all, not everything has to be innovated, but I would assert everything can be innovated. So now the human endeavor is, what's more important? So, like, how do we argue for the things that need to be innovated that make the biggest difference in our lives?
Right.
Or could fix our community, like the conversation we just had. So, but it's no longer a situation of we can't innovate, because the innovation mantra, if you're an innovation junkie, the mantra is, there's always a better way. No matter how good it is today, there's a better way to do it. And the question is, is it worth exploring what that better way is, or are we satisfied with the way it is? And I don't mean satisfied in the sense of protecting what we have, so that we don't allow people to get access to a better way, so
Right.
it protects our position, right? I'm talking about, like, is it worth innovating? And we
Right.
can't innovate on everything. We have to focus in on the things we as individuals or organizations want to innovate on. You have to decide, right? And so the process we use to decide, right? Easier when it's just you deciding for yourself. The minute it's the organization, that you lead, now it affects other people who work here, or play it at the community level. Picking where in our community we want to focus our innovation efforts. I want to argue on education, and healthcare and the way government works, right? And can we pick those three things and build use cases in all three of them and actually make real progress towards it? You might have a different point of view about where you want to focus, and I think it's the appropriate process for citizens to participate actively in that messy conversation to get to where should we focus. If we think we're going to innovate everywhere, we'll innovate nowhere. Right? If everybody's an innovator, and now everyone puts it in their title and the conference. And, like, everybody's an innovator, everything's an innovation, and when that's true, no one's an innovator and nothing is. So instead of changing the word and calling it something else, like rebranding it, how about we actually get better at choosing, where we think it's important to find that better way.
There's a rule in advertising when you're working with tech companies. If you use the word solution, you've said absolutely nothing, right?
Well, innovation, we turned it into a buzzword. So,
absolutely.
And some people will come to me and say, Saul, we need a new word. And I go through the roof. Like, would you stop with the semantics and we need another word? Like, the word is innovation. It's about a better way.
We're not going to have to go to court and have your name legally changed from Mr. Innovation.
No, it's too. I have a vested interest in this, in
retaining
this name now.
Well, I don't want to change there.
I'm not changing that.
So, last thing is we're in the countdown. We're at 5 weeks away?
We're
6
getting
weeks
there.
away?
Yeah, so September 13th and 14th
6 weeks away?
Is the summit.
7 weeks away?
And so now we're in crunch mode, and it's great. It's like there's a frenzy, there's an energy level, at BIF and in the community more broadly. It's very cool, and I'm
So as I always ask you,
Yeah.
sort of last question, any big announcements of who's coming?
So I just spoke with Carmen Medina. Carmen Medina spent over 20 years at the CIA, rose as a Latina woman, rose to be deputy director for intelligence at the CIA, and lived through an incredible Byzantine bureaucratic didn't make it easy for a woman, for a Latina to rise to that position, and she rose to a position of prominence and tells incredible stories about that. And now she wrote a book called Rebels at Work. How do we become rebels in a positive sense, right? To be able to change the organizations. Because if you can change the CIA, you could change anything. And
she won't be speaking just about waterboarding.
She's a storyteller that can, I can imagine, when I spoke to her the other day, she's been retired a little while, but now with everything that's going on nationally around our intelligence community, like, she lived there, she knows, how the sausage is made. And so she has an incredible story to share about what it takes to be innovative in this kind of context. I can't wait to hear her story at the summit.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a great one. So listen, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I next week we'll pick up on, I saw your gleaming endorsement of Joe Nacera's analysis of the Paw Sox. Bill Reynolds a week earlier had written one. Here are two journalists in their somewhat later years who have never paid for a ticket in their entire life, both expounding as to why taxpayers should take on the burden of publicly financing for billionaires. But we'll pick up on that next week, because that's an innovation.
No problem.
Thank you so much. Listen, everybody, thanks so much. A great lineup today on Business Mind.